Hey, here we are. First, let me start off by saying happy early-ish kind of new year to everybody, and thank you for tuning in to this week's episode. I'm your co-host Charles. That is my brother Nick, and
Good point.
good point. Yeah, nice. Thank you. As always, here we are back on a Friday to talk to you about some reptile stuff. This week's episode is a fun one. Actually, it happened to me if you follow our platform here on YouTube. But before we get into that, Nick,
What's USARK?
what's the USARK?
Yeah, we always got to plug USARK. USARK is very important. They are the only organization. Hey, there is somebody we
Wow.
know. Look at that. That is our sister. Thank you for tuning in, Em. We appreciate it. Anyway, USARK is very important. They're the only organization in the United States that's fighting for our rights to be able to keep these animals. Continually, there's legislation being put into place. They're trying to ban, sometimes species that maybe should be banned in certain places, but they're always trying to work in other things as well. So definitely go to usark.org. There's a link down in the description of this video. Check it out. Consider becoming a member. It's very affordable, and everything that you contribute, even the small amount, goes a long way to helping us continue to do the things that we love here. And just so we acknowledge, what's up, Wally?
How you doing, brother?
Thanks for tuning in, man. It's good to see you here. You don't have a live stream this week, finally.
Thanks for the support.
Those of y'all who don't know, Wally does every year he does the 12 Supreme Days of Christmas. We talked about it when we had him on. It is over now for this past year, but definitely be checking it out at the end of next year. I'm sure he's going to do it again. It's a really great, awesome giveaway and community building exercise that he does. So
Yeah,
check that out.
Super giveaway. I'm excited for some mantids and isopods and springtails. It was a huge giveaway. Just even the live class that I won was awesome. But we are going to try something new this week, and not new as in it's going to happen one time. We're going to try and make it a little more constant, but we're going to give you a little quick life update with what's going on here within the Gecko Galaxy and personal reptile husbandry that we both have. So, Nick, what's new?
Not a lot is new here. It is the same old story for the most part. As you know from a couple weeks ago, I did some traveling for Christmas. Came to your house, so I had my brother-in-law over here taking care of my animals a couple of times while I was gone. So just getting back to normal from that, getting everything ship shape and getting all my gecko cups cleaned and everything like that is, getting back in the swing of things when you travel. I'm good for being pretty useless for a fairly long period of time after I travel, but I'm getting back into the swing of it really quick here. Speaking of Wally's giveaway, we did donate a gecko for that. We donated a really nice red stripe gargoyle gecko, and I've been talking with the person that won that about when we're going to ship it. So it's an interesting thing as a person who, breeds and sells online. You have a shipping account, and navigating the challenges of doing reptile shipping is always interesting, especially this time of year. We agreed, all parties, that it was safer to wait until after the New Year's. So we are going to do that. And I'll have to be shipping the gecko up to the Lake Michigan area of Illinois. So it's going to be pretty cold up there. So we're going to shoot for sometime next week, maybe Tuesday. Looks like we'll have a slight opening. I don't think we're going to be able to get away from the low nighttime temperatures. And if we wait, we'll be waiting for months. So definitely going to try some creative packing if I do decide to do the shipping. So hopefully we can get that gecko out to the winter soon.
And safely.
That's really soon and safely. Yeah, we'll make decisions based on what the weather forecast changes over the next couple of days. Yeah. The daytime temps are acceptable. The nighttime temps are pretty low. But I've got some creative ways to pack the box. I think we can get around that. Other than that, there's not much. Breeding season winded down here a couple weeks ago. I don't have any eggs incubating. It's just taking care of babies. I'll be vending a reptile show in February, actually on our sister's birthday, February 5th. I'm all set up to do that. Huh? That is when that is. Yeah. So I'll be vending that show. excited to do it. Apparently, we missed a pretty good show right before the traveling began, but you just never know. Shows are hit or miss. Um, the Tri-State Animal Expo is the one that I vend here in West Virginia. It's my number one home show, um, and they're doing a new thing to support USARK where they're basically encouraging people who come to the show to get memberships by providing a VIP early entry type of thing for anybody who shows up with proof of a USARK membership, which is pretty cool. So that he figured that would be a really good way to contribute as opposed to just trying to collect some money at it. With it being a smaller local show, we can't really compete with the auctions that they do at like Tinley Park and stuff. So he figured members, over the next few years, if we continue to do this, we can get some good membership for USARK. So
definitely.
So what's going on with you guys? Oh, by the way, this is Caitlin. We should probably introduce your wife since she's special guest tonight.
She just had a question. That's all. This is my wife.
Hi. I'm Caitlin.
Is that good?
I mean, yeah, I don't have anything else.
Perfect. All right. No, everything's kind of like you said, same old here. Dealing with these weird temperature, whatever you want to call them, mood swings here in Virginia, where it'll be -15 and then it'll be 85, and it's really hard to keep the chameleons at a constant temperature. But I'm doing pretty well, keeping them warm enough during the day. They're not basking all day and cool enough at night that they get some good hearty sleep. So that's going well. I did order some fun new additions for the chameleons. A feeder cup that utilizes the screen of the screen cage as
nice.
as like the backing, and their tongues don't stick to it, which is something I'm having a pretty big issue with right now. Luckily, nothing, no hurt animals so far, but I just want to kind of get them feeding safer for everybody. And the ball python's good. You wouldn't know he was in there if I didn't tell you. It's just a cage with some substrate and a bunch of cool little stuff in it. A light.
He comes out at night. He
does come out at night, but I sleep at night.
That is the nature of a nocturnal animal.
Then he starts.
About that, the feeding thing with the chameleons, you made a pretty cool little temporary feeder thing that I thought was pretty ingenious, actually. Your little milk jug.
Yeah, I wish I could take credit for that. Here we go.
Oh, you got that idea?
I gotta give it away or give it up to Chameleon Academy, our friend over there, Bill Strand. He has a video on how to make them. I substituted some materials due to what I had on hand, and the materials I used aren't really the problem with the tongue sticking. It's when whatever the animal is gets too close to the plastic. If the chameleon misses, his tongue sticks right to the plastic.
Yeah,
it doesn't stick to the backing; it sticks to the plastic, which is becoming a little bit of an issue. So we're going to address that. Got some fun multivitamin stuff. Yeah.
Well, cool. When you get that cool feeding thing that you ordered, maybe we can do a short and put it on the YouTube channel. So
definitely. Yeah. I'll give him a little shout out too. There's a shop on Etsy. I don't have the name on hand.
I think it's
it appears to be 3D. You think it's here?
Well, you got a little box today, about this big.
Yeah, I would hope it's bigger than that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, never mind.
Anyway, that's probably.
There's always packages showing up.
Yeah, it's probably the supplement I was just talking about. The vitamin. I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, you were saying it looks like it's a 3D printed.
Yeah, it's just a little 3D, not little, but it's a 3D printed kind of thing. Pretty cool. In other news, though, our female, I don't remember. Did I bring this up before? I don't remember. I'm going to bring it up. Our female gecko that we have here at the Virginia satellite location decided to pop hemipenes. So
yeah, she's got some honking balls on her now. So
put that out there. It didn't just change its mind, but just hard to tell and all that with crusty geckos, which kind of leads us into what we're going to talk about tonight here. You got eggs. What the hell are you going to do now? This is going to be pretty much a specific incubation type talk. And what really one of the things we'll either get to or we can start off with it is temperature variance depending on or not depending sex variance depending on temperature of incubation. That's a cool thing we've been reading into a lot lately. So it turns out how hot the oven is what kind of baby you get, so to speak. Not literally.
In some cases, yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah. Let me, not a blanket statement at all. Specific species. But yeah, Nick, take us away on some incubation talk.
So, like you said, you got eggs. We've done an episode on, so you want to be a breeder type thing. So you decided you want to be a breeder. You put your geckos together, and now you got eggs. What are you going to do? So, it's not that hard, but there are some things you need to know. We're going to focus on a couple of species tonight, mainly because I have personal experience with them, and it doesn't require me to do a ton of background research and try to be an expert on something that I'm not. So we're going to talk about crested geckos. We can throw gargoyle geckos in that mix too, since I do breed those, and the stuff is pretty similar. And we'll talk about leopard geckos as well, which are a little bit more understood than the latter. But yeah, you got eggs. So, you breed your geckos, you put them together for a period of time, you give your female a lay box, she lays eggs. So what do you want to do first? The first thing you want to do is obviously figure out whether they're fertile or not. And you usually want to do this pretty carefully. When you find your eggs in your lay box, your female is going to lay them in whatever orientation, her body's in whenever she's digging her hole. So the general rule is, unless you know that those eggs were just laid, like if you catch her in the act and you wait for her to finish, that you don't want to flip those eggs. Because after a period of time, I've heard different numbers, somewhere between like 10 and 12 hours usually. Whatever orientation that egg is in, that forming embryo is going to attach itself to the inside of the shell. And if you flip your reptile eggs in general, then you could possibly have a drowning issue. Your amniotic fluid would move in such a way that it would drown your embryo. Although I've heard some debate on that as well. Some people have been like, I've dumped my eggs out by accident, and they rolled all over the floor, and I had 100% hatch rate. So, better safe than sorry, in my opinion. I try not to do that.
I think that's just because it can be done doesn't mean you should do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. So, don't flip your eggs. You find them in whatever orientation they're in. A really good trick that most of us do in the hobby is we'll take a little tiny Sharpie marker or something and make a little mark on the top part of the egg, whatever is facing up. So now we know that that's the top of the egg. Just in case it does get flipped, you can quickly flip it back without having to guess. And when you're checking for fertility, hey, what's up, Frank?
Frank the Tank.
Thanks for joining us.
Nice to see you,
Frank. Yeah, thanks for joining us, man. When you're checking for fertility, we do what's called candling. So for me, what I like to do is just use the light that's on my cell phone. I turn it on, lay it down flat, pick up my egg, because your gecko eggs are probably about an inch to an inch and a quarter long or so, sometimes even smaller, and just place it over that light. And you're looking for what I call a ring of fertility. I don't know if that's what it's really called, but that's what I call it, the fertility ring. There'll be a little, it looks like sort of reddish blood ring on there, and usually that signifies a fertilized egg, so you know that you're not going to just incubate an egg that's probably not fertile. When they're not fertile, you get usually a sort of yellowish colored egg. You don't really see any of those blood marks in there at all. And typically I started out putting those in the incubator, but most of the time if I get those, I don't do that anymore. I toss them. I just cull them because I know that they're probably not going to hatch. So once you determine if you have fertile eggs, now you need to set up some sort of an incubation chamber.
Let me stop you real quick. You started to say it, but I don't remember a definitive answer. What's the time you think? Whether you have a very good idea of when the eggs were laid, a closest idea, or like you said, you watched her lay them. How long do you think you should wait before candlelight? I don't remember you giving a specific time.
I didn't say a specific time about that. I said more of a specific time about how long it takes for that embryo to attach, which I've heard somewhere between like 10 and 12 hours. But I don't really like to handle the eggs right after they're laid. So sometimes I'll catch a female in the act of laying eggs, and then I'll, carefully slide her tub back in and leave her alone. I usually won't mess with her until the following day. That gives a chance for all that excess moisture that's on the egg from when it comes out of the female to sort of dissipate and the egg to harden, so to speak. they don't have hard eggshells like a chicken or a bird. They have sort of a leathery eggshell.
Yeah, unless
And
like like a bad calcified egg kind of.
yeah, you could have that if you have a calcium issue in some way in one direction or the other. You could have varying degrees of shell integrity.
Yeah.
Um, and then there are some gecko species that do have sort of hard shelled eggs, almost like a bird egg, but they're not included in the ones we're talking about tonight.
So you're saying 24 hours is safe to
Yeah, it's safe.
handle.
So yeah, with these types of, so when we're talking about New Caledonian geckos specifically, like crested geckos, gargoyle geckos, those types of things, a lot of times the incubation temperatures are going to be fairly close to room temperatures. So unless you have like a super heat lamp on your tank, which most people don't for those species, you don't have to worry about the temperatures or the humidity getting too high or too low in your lay box. So you can let them sit in there for quite a few hours before you actually start messing with them. And often for me, I don't find them until later anyway, and it could be as much as a day or two in some cases before I find them when they're laid. And they seem to do just fine with that. So yeah, I mean that moves us into our next thing. You have to set up some sort of an incubation chamber because obviously in the wild they're either going to bury their eggs or they're going to stick them to the inside of bark or something like that. Or sometimes they'll just lay them right on the surface, and then it's just sort of up to the elements whether or not they're going to do well, depending on the ambient conditions. But we're breeding in captivity. We want high success, so we want to try to set something up that's going to work. You got something? You look like you were going to say something.
Nope.
Nope. Okay, you had your mouth like you're just about ready to do it. Sometimes I think I can read you, and sometimes I'm entirely wrong.
No.
So that was one of those times. But yeah, so setting up an incubation chamber or tub is fairly all in good fun. It's fairly simple. There's a few different options when it comes to incubation medium. So basically, you want to have a layer of some sort of substrate in there that's going to maintain a certain level of moisture so that your eggs don't dry out. Eggshells are semi-permeable, so they have gas exchange and they have moisture exchange through them. So you want a substrate that's going to maintain a level of moisture that's going to allow the egg to, stay hydrated, basically. And then you also want a certain amount of airflow. So usually we use a small container. Typically, I buy the little I like the little crayon boxes. Actually, I like them a lot that you can buy at Walmart. Like when a crayon. I'm sorry, or is it a crown? I've heard when I was growing up. I don't understand who calls them crowns, but if one of you do, I'm sorry.
It's a crayon. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, crayon. Anyway, they're little boxes that you can buy at like Walmart.
I really didn't get that he was saying crayon.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See, look what you did. Confused her.
Okay, they're a box. They're small enough. They're small enough for small children's colored writing objects to fit in. Usually made of wax. Predominantly sold by the company Crayola. Anyway, those are the ones I like. There's a lot of different options. Sometimes people use the little deli cups like we take our animals to the shows in. Basically, you just want a little plastic container with a lid that seals and something you can poke a few ventilation holes into, because you do want some air exchange to go through those boxes as well. I personally like to go with the old school vermiculite method because it works for me, and I've been using it since I started breeding reptiles. And I can mix vermiculite without really thinking about how much water I'm putting in, how much vermiculite I'm putting in. I just know the consistency. Recommendations are usually a 1-to-1 ratio by weight of water and vermiculite. So you can actually use a little scale and dump water in there until you match the weight of the vermiculite. But what you're going for with vermiculite is you want to be able to squeeze it in your hand and not have a bunch of water run out. But when you open your hand, it holds that shape. So it's moist, but it's not overly saturated. And if you do that, it'll be good throughout the incubation period. You should never have to re-moisten it or anything like that. The other options are perlite, they look like sort of little white rocks. They're another soil additive. You want to use organic perlite so that there's no like Miracle Grow plant food or anything like that in it. And the ratio is different. I don't know it, and I'm not going to try to quote it to you because I've never really used perlite, but a lot of people have really good luck with it. And what seems to be the trend now, especially with New Caledonian geckos, is to use a product that's like little clay chips. I think they're made of a pretty similar material to what like our bio balls for our drainage layers and bioactive enclosures are. And they're made by Pangea. I think Rapashi makes a product too. It's called Pangea Hatch for Pangea. And what you're supposed to do is just basically saturate the entire amount of the clay chips that you're using and then strain off water until it stops running out. And then you can just use it. And it'll slowly dry out throughout the incubation period, but it'll remain moist enough. I tried it. I didn't have super good luck with it. It's probably just because I'm old school and I like vermiculite. So one way or the other.
Yeah, I got to bring
Yeah,
this
very
up.
good. Yeah,
Going
that is
back
a good way to do it too.
bass fishing, you always have an extra tackle box or two laying around. So tackle box method is recommended, or not recommended, is approved by me, even though I don't breed.
And it's approved by Wally Kern of Supreme Gecko, so I think that makes it well endorsed.
Very well.
But yeah, definitely Wally tackle boxes. I've seen those as well. I should have mentioned those. I don't personally use them, but I'm sure they work fantastic because yeah, he says it's a product called Turfus. Interesting. I know of Pangea Hatch. I know Rapashi has one too. I don't personally use it just because vermiculite works for me. I get a high hatch rate. But anyway, you get your vermiculite in your box. You place your eggs in there. You basically just can make a little indent with your finger. The trick is not to bury the egg. It's to sort of maybe a quarter way or half bury it so that most of the egg is showing from the top. That's the way I do it. There's also some other options like little suspension. I think Sim Containers makes a little egg tray. So it basically goes inside of your deli cup. Your substrate is all on the bottom. Your egg never actually touches the substrate. It's just suspended in a little, like almost hammock of mesh. So it allows for airflow all around and moisture flow all around. I've heard those work really well too, but I don't have any personal experience with them. Huh? Hammock? You like that I called it a hammock?
Are you saying hammock? It's a.
No, I'm saying hammock.
Comedy. Yeah. Stand-up comedy, big thing around these parts.
Oh, okay. But yeah. So once you get your your incubation setup going, when it comes to New Caledonian species, there's basically one predominant school of thought, and that is to incubate sort of we could do what we call shelf incubating. So you're basically incubating at room temperature. That's not something I've personally done with my New Caledonian geckos. Over the last few years that I've been breeding, I've been running a little Hovabator incubator on a very low setting, keeping it anywhere between 74 and 75 degrees at all times. And I get a really good hatch rate. My geckos come out in, decent size, and they all do really well. But that brings us to the subject of temperature dependent sex determination and whether it really exists in these New Caledonian species. There are some whisperings of it in certain literature that I don't currently have access to, but I've been reading some articles that do cite books by Philippe Davis Joly, the Rhacodactylus book, sort of the holy grail of New Caledonian care books. It's one of those things that is or isn't out of print. I'm not sure, but it's extremely hard to get and very expensive. A great book, I've heard. I am not currently wealthy enough to purchase a copy for myself.
Speaking of this right here, you probably noticed there's only 2.5.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There he is.
Our beautiful man over there, Mr. Gabe, has a family
get together for New Year's. Yeah,
I can't speak tonight, guys. I'm all over the place. I'm sorry. But yeah, he will be back next week. Not a permanent thing, just has prior engagement. So very nice to see you tuning in.
Yeah, thanks, buddy, for watching. Yeah, we're missing you too, man. He says missing us. Yeah, we're missing having you on. But yeah, so temperature dependent sex determination. Just saying the word sex a lot.
You're a little red. Is it? Are you good?
But anyway, temperature-dependent sex determination, well understood in some species, not as well understood in others. I feel like the New Caledonian geckos, it's a little bit less well understood, and it definitely needs some more work. Which I will say this and only this about. I am planning on doing some of that work myself this upcoming season, for the very reason that incubating at between 74 and 75 degrees for however long it takes, certain species take different times. I found that I seem to be getting a higher ratio of females with my geckos. I'm not 100% sure of that. That's one of the reasons we thought Charles's gecko was going to be a female, because I sort of was just like, yeah, it's probably going to be a girl because most of mine have been becoming girls. And it turned out it was a male. So that's good news. There is some diversity at least. But the plan is to go back and sort of track what I have gotten rid of with the people who have taken them home and see what they've turned into. See if we've got males, see if we've got females, a good ratio, and go from there and do an experimental incubation protocol to see if I can figure out, at least within my thing. Oh, nice. Interesting. Did you block?
I'm trying. It's loading. There we go.
There we go. We got some interesting stuff in the chat. We'll leave it at that.
Sorry to hear that.
Thanks for coming, buddy. Appreciate you tuning in.
Definitely appreciate the tune, man. Hope you feel better. Have a happy new year, you and your family. Take care, Bob.
Yeah, definitely. Happy New Year to you. A bot, he says. It was a bot.
Ooh,
oh boy.
Happened.
That's the second time. That's a little actually more tame than the last time. That's all I'll say about it.
Last time was bad.
Whoa.
The screen's breaking off.
Yikes. Anyway, so yeah, temperature dependent sex determination in New Caledonian geckos, something I'm going to try to be looking into myself. Obviously not going to be the definitive answer. There needs to be repetitive experiments done in science before we can sort of reach a consensus, which, my research will include trying to look for actual articles on that, other than those books. Maybe I'll have to get my hand on some of those books and see what they say about it. But anyway, yeah, shelf incubating. So you can incubate New Caledonian gecko eggs at temperatures varying from the mid to low 60s, that's Fahrenheit, up into the mid 70s with good success. I don't think you really want to get out of the mid 70s. I'm sure they could incubate at 78 to 80 degrees and still develop. But what you'll get is you'll get a much shorter incubation time and probably a much smaller hatchling. So obviously more opportunities for things to go wrong with your hatchlings when they come out much smaller. Something I said is very funny.
It's not you, man. It's that damn comment.
That damn comment.
Can somebody let us know in the chat if you can still see that comment?
Yeah.
Because you can still see it?
Well, I can't see the comment. I can just see the name of the person that did it.
That was it.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Delete that.
I mean, it says message deleted next to it, but.
So what we were told by DEA Exotics, one of our viewers, Andrew, is that we need to assign somebody in YouTube outside of the StreamYard platform to moderate. He was doing that for Wally during his live streams, and basically we give them moderation privileges, and then they look for things like that and kick people from the chat when things like that come on. Things that aren't related to the chat. So I'm not sure how we'll do that. We'll have to assign maybe Caitlin, yeah, when she's not actually on the show. Yeah, to be able to do that. It'd be hard for her to do it while she's here. The guy is blocked, says my wife, but you can see the link they placed. Yikes. Well, I guess if our viewers want to click on the link, then click on the link. We won't pass any judgment.
Oh, there they go. Mister's going off.
Yes. So yeah, anywhere in that range for shelf incubation, you're going to be mid to low 60s all the way up into the mid 70s. You're going to have pretty good success with incubating crested geckos or gargoyle geckos. Those are both New Caledonian species that I've bred. Slowly working my way up to the Chihuahuas. They won't be this year, but they'll be next year. So, I don't have much to say on that.
Project tomorrow?
Not tomorrow. No. Oh, you know what I mean. 2023. Excuse me. We're so close to tomorrow being next year. Yeah, 2023. That's when you'll see Chihuahuas from me, unless something changes.
Thank you, Wally.
But I don't think it will.
We'll definitely get with you here in the upcoming days. And,
yeah, thanks.
To figure all that out, I'm sure you can definitely give us some information on how to do it. Wally's been a huge help through the whole getting into YouTube.
Absolutely, a great
Awesome.
mentor
Thank
for
you
this venture that we're trying for sure. But anyway, yeah, and incubation times are going to vary based on temperature. So when you're incubating at those lower spectrums, you're going to get a much longer incubation time. Personally, with me incubating at that 74 to 75 degree range, I get crested geckos that will hatch out around 65 to 70 days, which sounds fast to a lot of crested gecko breeders, but they come out decently sized, probably smaller than some of the other guys who are incubating at lower temperatures, and they do really well. I have really good success raising the babies up. We don't have any problems. My gargoyle geckos at that same temperature range come out in about 80 or 90 days. So they usually take a lot longer on average. But if you're incubating on that low spectrum in the low to mid 60s, you can go well over 100 days with either species. So you're waiting a long time. But I think there's definitely benefits to doing it that way because they're developing slower. Things just have more time to develop the right way. And then you're getting larger hatchlings, which usually when it comes to reptile breeding, if you're getting slightly larger hatchlings that have incubated a little bit longer, they just seem to acclimate a lot better to out of the egg light.
Better start. You know, you get a little jump start on life, so to speak.
Yeah. My lights just went out, says Gabe. So this would be about the time that Gabe's screen would go dark if he were on the podcast.
You gotta Gust. Hey, Gust. Typical Gabe.
Oh yeah, Gabe types. Gabe is good at a lot of things. Typing is not one of them. So we love you, buddy.
Oh, I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yep. But anyway, yeah. So you're going to get varying times on your incubation depending on how high you're doing it. So that's what I'm looking at doing is doing maybe half and half, do some shelf incubating and then do some of the incubating at the very same temperature that I've been using for the last few years.
Now you've been looking at 75 degrees in the Hovabator, right?
Yeah.
All right. Now what's the average temperature of your house ambient?
It's extremely variable. I don't really know. I don't have a thermometer sitting out. Mm-hmm. So we keep the thermostat depending on the outside temperature because it's a bit drafty. Anywhere between like 72, 73, all the way up to 75, 76 sometimes if it's extra cold outside. And I'd like to think it's actually staying at that temperature, but sometimes I feel hot. So I don't know. It could just be that I'm hot-natured, and that's just what happens. I think it's another bot, but it's very innocuous, so we'll leave it.
So what do you think the chances are that the temperature is going to vary? You know, I mean, other than the consistency, because you obviously, you're in your house, you can't keep it consistent like the Hovabator can. But if you had to give it a mean, like an average, what do you think the average temperature is going to be ambient? I mean, if you had to take a stab at it, is it going to be a degree or two variance? Or are you going to try to go down?
I mean, there's definitely going to be a daily swing in temperature in this apartment if I'm still here doing it. Ideally, I'd like to move soon, so that would be good. But we'll see how that goes. But in this apartment is definitely going to be a daily swing. It could be in the mid 70s during the day, and then it could get down into the high 60s at night. Probably, I think that's probably what the apartment gets to in the nighttime. That's another thing that I'm looking at trying to figure out. There are incubators on the market that will actually cool as well as heat. So they have a wide range of temperature selections. Provided that they're actually accurate, I could get a small one of those probably and do a number of eggs at, let's say, maybe 68 or 69 degrees, so that there's a good variance between that and the normal temp that I'm already incubating at. And then I know that I've got that thing staying pretty much at that temperature throughout the incubation period. It's something I want to try. Maybe it's a good idea, maybe it's a bad idea, but only time will tell.
I don't think anything you do to expand your knowledge is a bad idea. I mean, as we can see right here, the man himself over here, Wally.
Yeah, I was looking at that comment.
82
Very cool.
degrees and 84 degrees. So
Wally, I need to know, are you talking about what species are you talking about here? Are you talking about an ubiferid like a leopard, or one of your other obscure, I won't call them obscure, I'll call them underrated gecko species that you work with, or are we actually talking about New Caledonians?
So I have a question while we're waiting for him to answer that.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
large scale breeders, do they tend to do the higher temperature incubation so that they hatch quicker, so that they can
Oh,
have?
wow.
Or
Sorry, Wally answered.
oh, okay.
I'm listening.
No, you're fine. So yeah, so like people that breed a lot to sell them, do they tend to do the higher ones so that they hatch quicker, or is it just personal preference?
Probably not. I would say that there's probably, for every good apple, there's a bad apple, and I don't necessarily want to qualify somebody that would do that for that reason as a bad apple, but it seems like it would be an unethical choice to incubate at a higher temperature just to get them out faster. You would be sacrificing quality for quantity at that point, and it wouldn't be something that you would want to do. So I think most respected breeders are incubating at an ideal temperature to facilitate proper development, as opposed to just let's get them moving, let's cook them quick, put on 450 for 15 minutes until golden brown type of thing.
Okay.
But that's a good question. Wally answered. It's Cresties. Holy crap, Wally. I didn't realize you could incubate that high. But that's interesting. That's good to know. I appreciate that. That's awesome information. I thought that would be too much, but hey, you live, you learn. You learn from the man himself sometimes.
There you go. Sometimes
but yeah.
So now I know you've obviously mentioned that you use a hovabator. You recommend that, maybe for starter? Give us do you have an ideal kind of list in your head for entry level versus this is top of the line, this is the Cadillac, so to speak?
Talking about incubators?
Because I don't work for Cadillac anymore.
Well, if you're making the choice to shelf incubate your like New Caledonian eggs, then you don't need to worry about buying an incubator at all. Obviously, you just want to put your eggs. Maybe, excuse me, drinking beer tonight. It's really messing me up. I usually have like water, but it's good. I like it. It just makes me burp. So you want to put your eggs, up on maybe like a dark shelf in the back of a closet somewhere where it's going to, maybe have a little bit less temperature swing, but it is going to be whatever the ambient temperature in your house is. So at that point, you just need a shelf somewhere. You don't need an incubator. But if you want to use an incubator because you have the mentality that I've had over the last few years, and that's that you don't want to deal with those swings in your apartment temperature or whatever, I really think you can't beat a hovabator for affordability. You can get a pretty standard. They're made for chicken eggs and like quail eggs and stuff, but and they come with all kinds of different accessories in some cases for like turning bird eggs and stuff, but you don't need all that. You can just get a standard. It's made of styrofoam, and it just has a grate over top of some channels that you put water in to maintain the internal humidity. And it is a thing that you have to sort of play with when you get, because I'm sure they probably make some digital ones now where you can sort of pick your temperature, but the standard one has a little hook screw on top that connects to the thermostat inside, and it's just two plates, and the varying separation of the plates is what sets that temperature. So you can screw it in and the plate will go down, or you can turn it the other way and the plate will go up. It's got a little arrow on top that says higher, lower in whatever direction, sort of a lefty loosey righty tighty thing, except it's a lefty upper righty lower type of thing. And so it has, it takes some time to play with and get your temperature right. I recommend putting another thermometer inside. You can get like an Accurite one from Walmart for like $9 that does temperature and humidity. So a thermohygrometer, and it works really well. I had been trusting that for a really long time. And recently I put a little probe that I had left over from my thesis research that takes an accurate temperature reading every 10 minutes for almost infinity. The batteries in those things last like 5 years. And then I can just pull the data and put it on my phone, and it shows me a little graph. So my internal thermometer says that it's 75 in there. And when you look at the data from the probe, it tells you that it goes anywhere between like 74.5 and 75. So the variation is very small. It holds its temperature very well. When it comes to a higher dollar incubator, honestly, I don't have much of an opinion for people because I haven't really done a lot of research on that.
Yeah.
Back in the day,
in some YouTube videos, I've noticed the one of late is a chameleon breeder. And I don't remember specific details, breeder, anything like that. It was really just kind of a scroll, happen chance find video. But it really looked like he had his eggs in a wine cooler type thing. I mean, it was huge.
Yeah.
had a big glass door on it. It didn't really look like an incubator to me. It just looked like something he could control the temperature in, whether warm or cold.
Well, that's what I was going to move into, and I can't say for certainty that it was this, but it's most likely a homemade deal. So people will take those wine coolers or old refrigeration units from stores and things like that, and they'll literally just take all the cooling guts out of them, and then they use FlexWatt heat tape, which is the same thing that you typically run through your snake racks to control the hot spot in the back of your snake tubs, and line the inside of it with that, and then they'll hook it into a thermostat so that they can control the temperature inside that area, basically. So they'll put a thermostat probe, like, I don't know, maybe on one of the middle shelves. So they set it for whatever temperature they want to maintain in the incubator, and it will turn on and turn off that FlexWatt periodically to maintain that temperature. And then as far as the humidity control, you can just put containers of water in the bottom, and that natural evaporation will keep the ambient humidity within the incubator up. And that's a homemade option. Varying amount of expense involved there. Obviously, you have to buy the FlexWatt unless you just have some laying around from another project. And then getting your hands on the cooler, which if you're lucky, you can find somebody giving one away, online or something, or you can go to a store that's going out of business, get one that way. I've heard of people doing that. Or you can just buy one from somebody, or from an actual company and gut it and turn it into one yourself. It just depends on how much money you have to play with for your incubation project. That's something I thought about for when I was doing snakes and stuff. Not really something that's important for my projects now. But yeah.
I was reading one comment.
Oh yeah, I saw Wally's comment. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. When it comes to incubating your New Caledonian eggs, that's a sort of long, drawn out explanation. I don't do anything small. Sorry. I can't keep things short and sweet. It's hard for me. But that's where you go from an egg, or a couple of eggs. Usually most of your New Caledonian geckos are going to lay 2 eggs in a clutch, to getting them to successfully incubate. And then obviously after they hatch, that's a whole different story. We can talk about that some other time if we want.
Yeah, that'd be good. The first few weeks episode, yeah, for sure.
Right.
And going forward, guys, with the podcast, depending on topic and whether or not we are going to host a guest, we're going to aim for the 45-minute goal moving forward. However, we definitely love to hear from you, questions, anything. And if we sit here for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour after the show, and you keep having questions, keep having questions. That's what we're here for, and that's what we love, the engagement and to be able to interact with you people. So just expect that kind of runtime out of us. And of course, when we host a guest, it'll probably run a little longer, but that's just something we've been kicking around for a little while, and we've finally come to a decision, I feel like.
Yeah. It's, we're setting that goal for ourselves so that we can stay closer to the original, hour time that we talked about. Because when we set the hour goal, then we go over. So we're experimenting with the psychology of trying to stay within a certain length of time on the show. But it's important, since I said I was going to mention it, we should talk about the differences in the leopard geckos when it comes to the incubation. So treatment of the eggs is pretty much the same. You're going to have, a lay box ideally for your female. She's going to lay 2 eggs usually at a time. And you're going to treat that whole process pretty much the same way. Getting them out, candling them, figuring out if they're fertile, marking the tops, getting your incubation container set up. But you do want to use an incubator for leopard gecko eggs, unless you just have a room that's really nice and warm all the time. Like if your reptile room is super hot, if you keep a lot of hot species and you keep it in that low to mid 80s range, then you'll have some success doing shelf incubating that way. But I do recommend an incubator. When I bred leopard geckos, I used, again, a hovabator, just a really easy, cheap way to go about it, especially if you're not working with huge numbers, because there's only so much room in that incubator. But you're going to be doing incubation temperatures in the 80s usually for them, as opposed to, the shelf incubating, which is more common for your New Caledonian species. And temperature dependent sex determination is extremely well understood in leopard geckos. There's been a lot of research on it, so you can get a pretty reliable sex ratio depending on what you incubate at. So some of the articles I've been looking at will say anywhere from the 81 to the 83, maybe 84 degree mark. you're going to get mostly females. So that's going to be the lower end of the spectrum where you're going to want to incubate these guys. And they're going to take around 65 days to hatch at that temperature. And then if you want to try and do a really good mix, like if you want a bunch of some boys and some girls, or really close to that, coveted half and half mark, which you're never going to get exactly that, then you move up to the 84 to 86 degree range. It's only like a 2 degree range in there. So it's a narrow sort of band where you're going to get that mix. And then your incubation time is going to go down from there about 10 more days. So you're looking at like 50, 55 days until they hatch at that point. And then if you want to try and get mostly boys, you bump it up again. So that 87 to 89 degree mark is going to get you mostly boys. And you're going to go about 40 days at that point. So it's the same kind of pattern. The higher you incubate, the less time it's going to take for the babies to hatch. And then especially with the leopard geckos, we really have a good understanding of how your sex ratios are going to turn out, depending on what you do. So there's not a lot of difference in how you treat the eggs as far as setting them up in a little box. You can use the vermiculite, you can use perlite, you can use Pangea hatch or something like that if you wanted to. Really, the main difference is what temperature you're going to incubate at and how quickly they're going to hatch. And then obviously there's a whole different level of care for a leopard gecko as opposed to a crested gecko or a gargoyle gecko. They're a whole different type of species. So, and again, that's something for maybe another episode. We can talk about baby care, like you said, first few weeks or something like that, and how they go. Some interesting things just to mention about temperature-dependent sex determination. We can talk about. So basically, you can sort of think of how sex is determined in a lot of these lizards on sort of a twofold thing. In some species, we don't know about temperature-dependent sex determination, whether it plays a role or not. So sexual determination is purely chromosomal. And they have similar chromosome systems to like what we have, where males have certain chromosomes and females have others. And then you can think about it on an environmental level as well. And that's where the temperature dependent thing comes into play. And then it's not sort of cut and dry. They're finding that a lot of times there can be an interaction between those two things. And in some species, you can get chromosomes that would normally produce males, but they were incubated at particular environmental conditions that cause them to be phenotypically female, which is interesting. And that's so it's a complex thing, and it needs a lot more research, and it's constantly being worked on by certain people, I'm sure, to try to really narrow it down what it's going to be.
Biology at its finest.
Yes, biology at its finest, absolutely. And so not every single gecko species you're going to work with. Most of the common ones that most people will work with are going to be egg layers, obviously. But there are some species that are, what do we call it? Live bearers. Lost my train of thought. Sorry about that. So they don't actually lay eggs. They'll give birth to, 1 or 2 live babies every year or a few times a year, depending on what they do. I don't know the details of it. I think one of my favorites is I think it's the rough-snouted gecko of New Caledonia. Something I'd really love to work with one day. I know they're live bears, which is really interesting. And then there are some species of geckos that are extremely common in the trade that do lay eggs, but they have what we call parthenogenesis, and they're strictly parthenogenic, which means that all of the individuals of that species are female, and they don't require male sperm to fertilize their eggs. They just produce fertile eggs and essentially produce clones of themselves. Your morning geckos are strictly parthenogenic.
Yeah, parthenogenic.
So cool.
That's badass.
And a lot of geckos can do it even if they're not strict parthenogenic geckos. It's been documented in like crested geckos from time to time, and gargoyle geckos as well. I know there's probably some other species too.
I think that's for more reptiles in general as well. Like
there are other strictly parthenogenic lizards as well. I don't know about snakes. I'm sure it's possible, but I don't want to say offhand whether it happens. But your morning geckos, if you get and it's interesting, if you get one morning gecko like as a pet, it is possible that she'll lay eggs and produce more geckos for you. but it's a lot more likely for her to do it if she's in a group of like 3 or 4, which is really interesting.
Yeah,
Even though they don't have, sexual intercourse, they don't mate, so to speak. But the group mentality encourages higher rates of reproduction, which is interesting.
that's very interesting. Yeah, and going back to the live bearing live birth, live birth. Going back to that, a lot of people that I talk to on a daily basis about various reptile related subjects, they just think of reptiles as something that lays eggs. And there's actually a lot of reptiles that give live birth too. I know we're focusing on geckos, but just thinking about that, it made me think of the
Snakes too.
various other things. Yeah, like boas.
Yeah, boas are live bearers. Your garter snakes are live bearers.
You've ever seen, by the way. If you haven't seen a boa give birth, check it out. I don't know. If you got a strong stomach, it doesn't. It's very weird. It's incredible.
It's interesting. It's interesting. It's
for sure, but very weird.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, they technically do have eggs. They're just they never lay them, and they never develop a shell. So they're more or less stacks. Hey, there he is. We were just talking about you, buddy.
Yeah.
Andrew, DA Exotics, thanks for joining us tonight. We just mentioned you earlier. You had told me about how to set up moderators on YouTube. We have another interesting comment come through this evening.
Oh, Jackson Chameleons.
Yep, Jackson.
It's like you guys are here in my living room. Yeah, Jacksons are live bears. I've seen some videos of them giving birth. It's very weird. It's arguably weirder than a boa. Like they stand on a branch and then they just poop out this thing that looks like poop, and it falls like onto a lower branch, and then it just goes, and then all of a sudden this little alien bursts out of it. It's
the craziest thing you've ever seen, because they'll fall onto a leaf, and then you're like there for a second, you're like, "Is that dead? What is that?" And it just
what is that?
Oh my god!
Like a geometric shape, and then it's it's just a whole chameleon. It runs away.
Then it's just a tiny little chameleon that just starts, climbing away.
Moving as soon as they like unfold, they start moving.
Oh yeah, they're like that instinct to not be eaten is very strong.
Yeah. They hit the feet. They're gone.
Yeah.
Funny. It's crazy.
That's really cool. We gotta look that up later.
Oh yeah. Chameleons are the new obsession, in case anybody doesn't know already.
All started with that girl right there. Her suggestion. We were at Tinley Park, and she was like, "I want a chameleon." I was like, "I don't know if that's the best first reptile pet." So I kind of talked her out of it. And then, a couple months after they get home, they get the opportunity to bring in a chameleon from somebody that they know who can't keep it anymore. And now it's the new thing.
I don't know if we should do that. I don't know. And I was like, I'm going to get it. Like I'm gonna go.
You can handle it. You can handle it. It'll be okay.
And now I'm through the moon obsessed. Yeah. Got cages with custom bioactive setups, full Miss King setup, plans for a new Ambanja male coming soon. Hopefully, we have a female veiled and Ambelo Panther working on Ambanja. Might end up getting a nosy B2. A lot. We're just gonna keep progressing. Definitely want to.
Pretty soon, the chameleon enclosures are gonna line that room you're sitting in, so they'll have no choice but to have them in frame.
We have a whole cage sitting there that's together. We just haven't moved.
Ready to move that veiled in there.
Yeah,
because she came in a really nicely set up cage, but it is a little on the small side for her. So definitely move her to that big one.
What is it? I don't want to.
I think it's like a 2x18 or something.
It's like a 16 by 16 by 30 or something. It's not very big. And
it's pretty small.
I mean, the females don't get that big, but big enough to where that is way too small.
But she's bigger than your male envelope is. So
right now,
she'll utilize that 2x4 really well. Is it a 2x4? 2 feet by 2 by 2x4. Yeah.
Piece of wood, but yeah.
Is it a 2x4? Are you going to put her on a 2x4? You're just going to stretch it across the room, nail it into the wall.
2x4.
Like, this is your living space. You've got
a little
4 inches.
spray it with water every other day.
Go free range like early Bill did. Set the whole room up with plastic.
Yeah, with plastic. Nice little
Yeah.
Dexter vibes going on in here. But yeah, so yeah, there will be a Jackson's coming around. So all types of stuff. It's gonna be all out chameleons here in the next 2 years.
Except for when we collab on some colubrid stuff.
Oh yeah. They already got a whole wall and everything set up. Yeah, so we're ready for that too. Yeah, we're gonna be.
My current residence situation doesn't allow me to do some of the things I want, so I have to put my brother on it.
No, it's good. Well, I'm gonna have so much fun. I love colubrids, love the corns. I can't wait to start this new project, bloodline, little lineage. So that's gonna be really fun. Sorry about that, but yeah. So we're progressing, which is really silly because we're just a few weeks out from having our first child, really. So we're just gonna take up this entire room with reptiles.
Yes, this is her first official YouTube appearance right now, actually. Yeah. She's in frame at the moment. You just can't see her.
So the reptile
that's a whole nother adventure. Oh, yep, there she is.
Reptile room's all ready to go, and the nursery still got drywall mud on the wall.
You'll get it done.
Yeah.
Every time we do something in the reptile room, I'm like, oh God, we're gonna have a baby, and she's gonna have nowhere to go.
You put a crib right there. We got a little
just put her in just turn one of those 2x2x4s on its side, take off the top, and that's a crib. There you go.
I'll hook up a Miss King nozzle. I'm like, this is gotta work for a baby.
Hook it up to a milk machine, and you'll be all right. Yeah.
The baby getting
just
sprayed.
Mister with formula.
Have a whole set of reservoir set up. Oh man!
Oh my goodness!
These are all jokes.
Absolutely jokes. Yes. She's gonna have an actual human person crib with human person care supplies, diapers, etc.
Oh man!
The raising of human children is a different thing than raising reptile children, and change your whole life, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But moving on.
Anyway, I think we're at the 57-minute mark. We've covered, I think, pretty much what I wanted to cover tonight. Hopefully, it was in depth enough for some of you guys. I think most of the people in here probably already know what we're talking about, and we've had some extremely good input from our friends, Wally, mainly. We really appreciate that. Really interesting information to hear that you can incubate cresteds at those higher temperatures and get really good success rates. I had no idea.
Yeah. Good successful night here. Sorry, rearranging the room.
Speaking of visitors, I have a cat walking across my desk.
Cat's name?
It's Raj. Rajesh Kuthrapali. Yes. Rajesh Kuthrapali. He's very upset because you may or may not. Well, I'm touching him, but he doesn't usually mind that. It's the other mammalian addition that we've recently put into our house. It's a little puppy, a corgi. Oh my goodness gracious! This person is just really going. Beth is on there right now. She's trying to moderate it from the YouTube side. Whew. Goodness gracious!
It's the same thing.
Really pushing it. Yeah, it's the same person, same type of stuff. But yeah, we got a little corgi puppy. Special thanks to you guys for looking after her for a little bit before we came into town to pick her up. She's a little terror.
Yeah.
And the cats are extremely mad that she's here. It's gonna take them a while to get back into. Oh, there's the dog right there. Yep. There she is.
Look at her.
There's your puppy. So non-reptilian family member. We have some of those. But yeah, she's a terror. She looks like she's being super good right now, but she's. What are you doing, honey?
Only blocks for 5 minutes.
It doesn't matter. She's talking about the blocking of our our bot troll or whatever who's come on here and made some questionable comments on our stream.
That's when you know you're a success. You got trolls.
Hey, there we go.
Yeah, that's it. There you go. Oh yeah, Wally, you guys had a corgi. Interesting. Yeah, she's got a lot of attitude, man. But she's sweet at the base level. Hopefully she'll quit her puppy biting soon. She knows to listen to me at this point for certain things because she tries to eat everything. So when she hears me go, psh, 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 she goes and takes off running, and then goes and sits in the corner and's like, "Oh, what do you mean I can't eat that shoe?"
She likes blankets.
Yep, she chews on blankets, shoes. I caught her in the kitchen last night in the middle of the night eating my shoes. So my shoelaces no longer have the little hard ends on them, that they put on there so you can feed them through the eyelets. Yeah.
Yeah, if you just burn it and pinch it, it does the same thing.
I know. I'm not completely dead in the water. Yeah.
Well, oh man, it is New Year's Eve, and I am tired at 10:30. I don't know if I'm gonna make it to the ball drop.
We're lame.
Is this what it feels like?
This is what it feels like.
Oh man, but good episode. This is how you incubate everything. Not everything. It was a joke.
Just a couple of things. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Very, very thorough.
The intricacies of egg incubation vary. They're called aglets, Andrew. Thank you very much for that. I think I called them eyelets.
Yeah.
Oh, did you say that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Excuse me. I don't know my shoe terminology, people. I just wear them on my feet for utility because if I was to walk around barefoot, I would be crying all day because I have tenderfoot syndrome. So every time I put my foot down on anything that's not flat surface, I'm like,
Oh man.
Shoes are a necessity. But aglets, I'll keep that in the back of my information banks for future use.
There you go.
Yeah.
You'll probably forget.
Yeah, I will forget it. 5 minutes after we get off this stream, I'll forget it. Later on, a couple years from now, I'll be like, damn, the little holes in my shoes are messed up. I don't, the holes in the shoes where the laces go. Like, you mean aglets?
It's not a hole in the shoe. It's the plastic cap of the laces.
Yeah, that part is the aglet.
That part's called the aglet? Oh, I misunderstood. Okay.
Wow.
Oh, it even says it. The end of the shoelaces. It's called reading, Nick.
All this together.
It's called reading.
Get it together.
It's called reading.
Well, you're up
Get
to
your
it.
shit all in one place. Get it together. So it's together.
Oh man, but well, I reckon we're gonna wrap it up for the night. We'll finish the year off with a bang. Good episode. Thank you all for tuning in. And as always, we're hanging out. You're hanging out.
I'm hanging out.
So am I. Me too. Hanging out.
It's Reptile Hangouts, guys. You know the deal.
He never makes me do that. Was that your idea, Caitlin?
No, it was mine.
Oh, okay. We have to talk about
Terrible idea. Let's not put you down for improv moving forward. Well, I'll keep all the improvisation on me. But anyway, wonderful.
Happy New Year to everybody. Thank you for coming and tuning in with us. We appreciate it.
Awesome. Yes. Thank you to our basically sponsor at this point, Wally at Supreme Gecko, helping us out a lot. I love to have you, man. Thanks for all the knowledge you always share. And everybody have a safe and happy New Year.
Absolutely.
We'll see you next year.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we will definitely see you next year.
Next year. It's going to be a whole 7 days before we see you again. But anyway, this is Reptile Hangouts podcast, guys. We had a great night. Can't wait to hear from you. Any questions on this episode? Feel free to tune in next week. At the beginning, we're going to go over our usual updates and everything. Feel free to put them in the comments. We'll answer any of your concerns, and we look forward to hearing from you. Please hit the like and subscribe. And if you are so kind, hit that little bell to let you know every Friday when we go live. We put out notifications through the week, and we definitely look forward to seeing you and hearing from you. So we're hanging out. You're hanging out. This is Reptile Hangouts, and we'll see you next week. Have a wonderful
Night,
night,
everyone.